Sometimes entrepreneurs get in the mindset that, ooh, this is cool and it's a really good deal. If it's a weird property, stay away from it. I hate to say that, and I love weird properties. It's like a
Yeah.
castle in the middle of tract home neighborhood. Nobody wants the castle,
Uh-huh.
right? As much as you
Yeah.
love castles and princesses, and don't buy it.
Yeah.
Sometimes the best deal is the one you don't buy.
Hey guys, my name's Julian Castle. Today, with someone who has earned the name the Bank Whisperer. His name is Bobby, the Bank Whisperer, and it's for a reason. Bobby has helped hundreds of investors close profitable pre-foreclosure deals, often stepping in when others, gave up or don't know what to do. So he knows exactly what to say to banks and how to find the right opportunities and how to turn that distress into profit. So, Bobby, how you doing today?
Living the dream, baby. Just got back off a bike ride.
Aw,
I'm sweating, so it's
awesome.
pretty hot, but life is good. I was telling Julian before I
Awesome.
jumped on the call. I was trying to get out for a bike ride earlier, but was on the phone with a bank homeowner, and I was sitting here at the desk with my bike helmet on and my outfit ready to go. It was just kind of funny. Just kept working, and then I realized you still have your helmet on, you clown. I've been sitting here at my desk. So, but anyway, life is good. So went for a quick spin before this call, and here we are.
Amazing, amazing, love it. Okay, great. So, Bobby, just to set the stage for everyone, how many foreclosure deals have you worked on? What kind of financial outcomes have you helped clients achieve?
I would say, and that's a tough question. I would say too many to count. Indirect, direct sellers, banks, probably personal deals, real estate agent. I would guess it's in the thousands. I don't have an exact counter, but we help so many homeowners. Now, I want to be upfront. We don't get paid for all of them. There's a lot of times we stop sales. We help homeowners sometimes stay in the home. Sometimes we help them, navigate out of a tricky situation they're in, and we don't make a dime out of it. But I would say it's in the thousands that we have helped, and we've helped a lot of investors understand how to navigate through this. A little bit of extra knowledge on how to navigate through this. It's not rocket science.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, great. And so, just curious, like how do you get into this niche? Like negotiating directly with banks. Like what, how you just land, yourself in that.
So with me, it started with house hacking. I'm a tightwad. I didn't want to pay rent. So first married in rental unit and thinking, how do I get out of this? I also had a real estate license, but I started the first deal I ever did was buying a home on the court steps, and I remember showing up with my check. You had to have a $5,000, $10,000 cashier's check ready to present to the trustee. That's the attorney that's handling that auction. And I
Yeah.
remember bidding on this house. It was super exciting. Um, you know, uh, I knew exactly what I was going to pay, was comfortable with that. And there was this old lady. She reminds me. Have you ever seen Monsters Inc.? I don't know if you have kids or not.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Roz.
Yeah.
So remember Roz, the old lady, is just like next. She was
Uh-huh.
bidding on this property, and I'm like, what is she doing? She was an older lady and kind of had a beard. I was a little scared, bidding against her. But anyway, she ended up bidding this property up, and I thought, lady, go away. What are you doing? You're paying way more than the home is worth. And I was a little disappointed. But I was a pretty ambitious kid. Marched right over to her, and there was another guy standing behind her. And I said, hey, tell me about this. What I realized is she had purchased the second note, and this is PhD level investing here, so this might go over a lot of your
Uh-huh.
head, but she had purchased the second mortgage, which was a lien at a discount, and she was using that as bidding credit. So if hypothetically it was a
Mm.
$50,000 second, she probably picked it up for 2,500, 3 grand. But once the bidding began, the opening bid, she had $50,000 bidding credit. Wouldn't cost her any more than the opening bid. So anyway, she ended up winning that. My mind was blown learning about this
Wow.
through her. I ended up getting the house from her anyways. We lived there for 4 or 5 years, cleaned up the yard. I remember my wife crying when we bought the home because it had cat pee and dog poo poo on the carpet, and we gutted it, renovated it, lived there, made some great memories, and made a lot of money on that property. But that was the first time that I had ever done a real estate deal, and I
Wow.
like to see how things work. What are the mechanics? Break it down.
Mm-hmm.
And I was bidding on the court steps. I thought there's got to be a better way, doing this prior to, and that's what I learned. She had purchased that note, was controlling this sale, the process of this sale. So that's
That's
how I started.
amazing. That's amazing. So, uh, Incredible. So we talked a little bit about this earlier. So we asked you, what kind of financial outcomes have you helped clients achieve or yourself? So if you're looking at a deal right now, like you just gave us pretty much like a an explanation of what a deal would look like. Like
Mhm.
you'd basically have a lot more equity into the deal if you were to purchase the second note. Is that right? Or what kind of
So,
financial outcomes do you get?
so you can create equity. Again, it's a more advanced level investing, but buying those notes, if a first is foreclosing, any of those junior lien holders, with the exception of federal tax liens, judgments like that, the government's going to get their money. But if it's just a second mortgage somewhere, they are typically going to get wiped off in sale at the trustee sale. And
Right.
and again, it can get bid up, and overflow will eventually go to them if there is excess funds or surplus funds. But
Right.
for the most part, I've purchased properties that had second, third, and even fourth mortgages on them. I'll go buy the second, buy the third, and take out the fourth, and then I have all this bidding credit, or I can just reinstate the first. So I don't have to come out of pocket the full amount on the first mortgage. It's just a matter of reinstating that loan. So there's a lot of
Mm,
different ways, and I don't know where we got the term to skin a cat. I don't know, but there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat. Hopefully nobody's skinning cats on this podcast. But there's a lot of
yeah.
different ways to do a deal. You just have to think creatively. You called me, Julian. We hadn't really met before, and shared a deal that you had done. And right as we got on the call, he's like, "Hey, assigned 14 grand." Boom. I'm like, "Dude,
Yeah.
awesome. Way to go.
Yeah.
Great."
Yeah.
You learn
That's
a new
awesome.
skill,
Yeah.
how to do
Uh-huh.
it. So there's a lot of different ways to navigate, as opposed to the traditional go get a mortgage, pay off all the debt, and overpay for a home. You can create equity in these properties.
That's amazing. Okay, so tell me a little bit. Why do most investors stay away from these types of deals? Like what, you know?
They're complex. I mean, Julian, there's so many moving parts. Whether you're analytical, OCD, ADHD, there's so many moving parts, but it's fun. It's fun to figure that out. Running a podcast, I don't think I could do
Mm,
that. I mean, I have a little jabber speaker here, never done a podcast before. You're probably like, oh, this is easy. So it's just a matter
yeah.
of learning the different components of the deal, where you can get in trouble, the pitfalls. I mean, for you, it's how to market, how to get a following. Most investors are scared to do a pre-foreclosure because they don't understand how to go through the process. So, I would ask anyone, how do you do what you do? What do you do for a living? How do you do it? You and I, probably 90% of your listeners, have a skill set that we haven't acquired yet. So it's
Hmm.
learning the process, learning the moving parts, who the players are, and then taking those players, down one at a time. So,
Gotcha. That makes sense. Okay, cool, cool, sweet. Okay, so all right, let's get a little bit of first principles, on these kind of deals,
mhm.
right? So, on a foreclosure or pre-foreclosure deal, can you explain what actually is happening when a homeowner goes into pre-foreclosure, like from the bank's point of view? What?
Yeah, so I need to just qualify, depending on what state you're in, there's
Yeah.
judicial and non-judicial states. So we're not going to go into a lot of detail there. You can Google anything, but a judicial state just means it needs court involvement. So there you go on that one.
Okay.
Non-judicial is Utah's process. We're a non-judicial state, so there is a foreclosure process that they have to follow. So there's what's called a notice of default that is filed. You stop making payments to the bank. The bank doesn't like that. The banks are in the performing note business. You'll hear me say that often. Banks
Mm-hmm.
lend you money, and they want you to pay them back the money they lent you, and they charge you 2.5 times over the course of that loan. So you're borrowing 500,000. You're going to pay well over 1 million to pay that bank back for that privilege of
Mm-hmm.
borrowing that money. If you don't pay them
Okay.
in a non-judicial state, that notice of default is recorded, at the county, and then they send notice to the buyer. So after that, there's a little statutory waiting period that takes place, or a curing. In our state, it's 90 days. So they can reinstate that. And then after that, by law, we have to publish. It used to be in a local newspaper, but they have to publish that for 3 weeks. And then there's something called a trustee sale. That's basically an individual that's representing the lender, the bank, the investor, that is foreclosing on that property, and they have to publicly
Mhm.
have a sale, and that property is sold at auction to highest bidder. There's none of this behind the scenes trickery going on with these trustees. It's got to be above board, and there's legal processes in every state for them to follow. But that's the process that we follow here in the state of Utah.
Okay, cool. So when you say that they have to list the property for 3 weeks, and usually that was the newspaper, are they listing it now like on the MLS
No.
or Zillow, or where is that
So,
listed?
so
You know?
Zillow and for auction.com, they're getting a hold of county records or trustee websites. There are services out there that now go gather that information for you. Back in the olden days, the late 1900s, when I was doing this, right?
Yeah.
This is something that you would have to go down to the county, you search through, books and pages and find this. There are services now that will go out and find these attorney websites that are publishing sales. There's an upcoming sale. Here's the opening bid amount. Those are such fascinating services to me now that just expedite a lot of the processes. Now it's just a function of going through that data, skip tracing it, finding out who the homeowners are, parents, siblings, neighbors, so that you can start calling and
Oh
find that
wow.
individual. And there are services that provide all of that data for you. But it's so much easier now than it used to be. And there's about 1,000 foreclosures
Gotcha.
happening every day. So a
Wow.
lot of
Wow, that's
families to
amazing.
help.
So can you give me a little bit of information about those websites that people can kind of look them up, or how do you get in, how do you get to view these properties so that maybe you can find some leads, you know?
So we have so there's a couple private organizations that we have that will go to counties. We create our own uh, little technology that does this searching. But you can get
Hmm.
on PropStream, Privy, Niche Data. There's a lot of sites out there. Foreclosure.com, auction.com. A lot of these sites, you're going to pay for some of those services, but they
Yeah.
will aggregate notice of defaults, post trustee sales, and sometimes you'll have that information skip traced. Other times you need to pay for that to find out who the homeowner is. But most of this information is public record and available for you to look up.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, cool.
Mhm.
So I noticed a terminology there that I'm not quite clear on, which is trustee sale. What is that term? What is that? You know?
A trustee is just picture an attorney that's handling this process for the bank. The banks are not, again, they're in the performing
Mm,
note business. The trustee, they'll hand that over to a trustee, and they'll complete the foreclosure process legally within that state. Sometimes it's an attorney, sometimes it's a sheriff's sale, depending on which state you're in. But it's the
mm,
individual that has been uh, set aside as the representative for the bank to handle that sale. So if you
gotcha. That
Google trustee attorneys, in my state, you'll pull up a list of trustees that will be handling those sales, and it's a great list to work from. They usually update those lists, but again, our goal is to get that information right when the notice of default is filed. If you keep in mind the part of the process that we just talked about, you're catching it just before the sale. They've got to publish, 3 weeks before the sale that the
hmm
property is in default. It's going to go to auction, and then they'll notice here's the sale date. We want to be able to catch that long before, right when the notice of default is filed, and talk to the homeowner and say, hey, tell me about your situation. How did you get here? Is it probate? Is it a vacant home? I mean, we want to understand in the beginning and then work through that process.
Gotcha. That's amazing. Okay, so tell us a little about the psychology that's going on here. So what are the major players? The bank, the borrower, the investor. Like, what do they all want? In this scenario, when you've talked to them, what are what do they all want essentially?
Okay, so that's a good question. So there's different parties involved in this situation. So we've talked about the bank. They're in the performing note business, as we talked about. They want to be paid.
Hmm.
Borrower borrows money from the bank, and the bank wants the borrower to pay the money back. When they don't, that's not a good relationship.
Yeah.
So that's the bank. The borrower, uh, they often can cure what's called arrears. Are you familiar with that term? That's just the
Yeah.
amount that they're behind. So say their payment, just for sake of numbers, is $2,000 a month. They're behind 6 months. There's $12,000. There's going to be some additional fees. So that might total 15,000 in arrears. So they're behind
Yeah.
$15,000. There's going to be some court fee or attorney fees and some other garbage fees they love to pad with that. That
Yeah.
arrears, they have a certain amount of time to reinstate that, where you can call the bank. And
Hmm.
that's where I like to get involved to help them call the bank. They typically don't have the money to do so, but that borrower,
Hmm.
they're overwhelmed. They've had a life event that's happened, a job loss, illness, death. Matter of fact, I keep these. I just got them out this morning. This right here, one of the properties I sold and made, it was about 80 grand on, gave the homeowner some good money, stopped the sale. I had to, buy the second, pay it off, reinstate the first, all these things. But this is the psychology of the homeowner. They're not opening these bills from the bank. These notice of default bills, you're late. They just stockpile them. They get to a point where they don't even open them anymore. So when I was cleaning out the home,
Yeah.
I thought, man, these are all their bills from the different lenders that they have. And I just keep that
Yeah.
little stack. And this is just a fraction of them. We threw the other half away, but there's a overwhelming feeling when you're dealing with these homeowners, and that's the best part, is being able to help them go through options. Hey, here's option number one. Let's call the bank and see what we can do. What is your goal? Some of them want to stay in the home. Okay, let's see if that's a possibility. Second option,
Yeah.
beg borrower still. Who do you know that has that 15, $20,000 that can help reinstate that? Do you have a family member? Do you have an uncle, a rich uncle, a brother that could loan you money so that you don't lose your home? I don't.
Yeah.
Okay, and if they've considered moving, again, we want to be your plan C. Let's see if we can recoup some of your equity. We're going to go in and renovate the home, and that's my investment where I do the carpet, paint, kitchen, whatever, and then we'll put it on the market and sell it. But if we can help the homeowner make some money, this most recent deal, homeowner's getting 50,000 bucks. She's thrilled because she didn't have to do anything. She was already on her way moving out.
Hmm.
$25,000 in arrears that we reinstated. I just was on the phone with the bank this morning uh, in my bike helmet and negotiated a $17,000 second down to $10,000, and I paid him 500 a day, and I can pay the other 9,500 when we close the property in 2 weeks, and we'll
Okay.
probably clear close to 100 grand on that one. And it's interesting.
Wow.
We'll have to do some things to the home and help the lady
Hmm.
move out, and we've got some investment there. But after we pay ourselves back, a lot of people say, "Wow, that is just unconscionable that you guys can make that kind of money off people." And I said, "You ought to let me give you the number of the homeowner. Talk to her. She's thrilled because it was going through foreclosure tomorrow. Nobody was willing to help and let her stay in the home and pay for her rent, first and last month's rent, and give her 50 grand. She was getting nothing." So we are very candid with these homeowners and say, "Look, here's what we're willing to do," and it will present a plan, find out what works for them, and you come to an agreement on what works. The
Yeah.
last thing in your question is investor. So there's the bank, the borrower, and the investor. The investor wants to get the best deal possible, turn a profit. We do
Hmm.
help more people than we buy homes, but we believe firmly it's people before profit. We've got to take care of those people, and I'm a big believer that we're going to show up at the pearly gates. Nobody's going to be pulling a Hearst or a U-Haul behind their Hearst. We're not going to take anything with
Yeah.
us, so we need to
Hmm.
treat people with respect and dignity. And the my favorite question is, if I were to give you, Julian, homeowner, seller, a magic wand and create your ideal outcome, what would that look like for you? And they'd say, man, if I could walk
Okay.
with 10 grand and not lose everything and have you take on all my debt. We're actually helping this lady negotiate 12 credit card debts. And I've already negotiated most of them 50% or less. Some of them I hope to go back, after the home closes and kind of share the situation and get them at 20 to 30 cents on the dollar. Nobody does that for homeowners. That's like
Yeah.
it's not even a service we offer, but we found out she had so much debt. We're like, let's see if we can help you out. So in addition to getting her 50 grand, she got a huge discount on the second that we're going to pay for, and then lots of
Hmm.
help on her credit card debt. So it's a beautiful thing. I love hearing them say, thank you so much. You're not like any of the investors I've talked to. So that's the fun part
Wow.
of doing his business.
That's amazing. You're just coming in negotiating deals, helping out the homeowner or the
Yep.
seller, and then you know great. So okay, so let's talk a little bit about the non-negotiables of the banks. What do they care about in these situations?
Sometimes it's time frame, non-negotiable.
Hmm.
Sometimes we'll call a bank. For example, a loan modification. Julian, if you were in
Yeah.
a bad situation, I say, hey, let's get the phone on the bank and find out what our options are. We get
Yeah.
the phone on the bank. They're going to ask for the loan number and the last four of their social. So I always like to have them present on the phone. It's a recorded line, so there's nothing shady going on. Everything is full disclosure and above board what we do. Our offer, our
Hmm.
purchase contracts, everything. There are times that the bank will say to them, you know what? It's going to take 30 to 45 days for a loan modification. Your sale is in 7 days, not an option. So I crossed that off the list.
Wow.
Some sellers have played the game, this stall game with the bank so long that a bank will say we're not messing with you anymore. So
Hmm.
I will ask for what's the reinstatement amount to bring that loan current first, and then second, what's the total payoff. So
Hmm.
those are two non-negotiables with the bank. That sometimes it's just too late, and they'll just tell them, we've given you too many chances. You've played this game too long.
Yeah.
So
Gotcha. I guess they just lose faith in them as borrowers. They don't want to continue, you know.
they do, and sometimes they've given them a chance. There's in FHA loans. There's I don't know if you've heard of partial claim. One of the properties I
Hmm.
bought, a partial claim loan sits as a second lien. It's usually a zero interest, and it is due when they sell or refinance the property. So one of these properties I was buying from a homeowner. Matter of
Yeah.
fact, it was this guy right here with all these.
Yeah.
It was a $60,000 partial claim, which means he was behind during the COVID pandemic. The banks were offering, let's take that debt,
Oh.
put it on the back of your loan.
Yeah.
Remember those?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they magically forget about this. Sellers have selective amnesia, unfortunately. When you ask them, what other debt do you have? What other, and he said, oh yeah, when we pulled a preliminary title report, we saw that partial claim on there, and we were all shocked. And so I had to call him and say, hey, there's a $60,000 partial claim. Um, oh yeah, I forgot. And I said, okay, so I'm going to take care of that for you, but you are going to leave the stainless steel refrigerator and the washer and dryer. And I said, those are the most expensive washer and dryer and fridge I've ever purchased for 60,000 bucks. And he kind of laughed and he's like, dude, I'm so sorry, but absolutely we'll leave those. So, I took on that debt, still made hefty profit on that property, but he was thrilled. He was getting all his debts wiped
Yeah.
out, by the investors. So those are some of the things that you'll find with the banks that it's the wild, wild west. Bottom line, you don't pay, you can't stay, is the bank's, attitude.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Very interesting. So now let's talk about how to find the right opportunities, because a lot of these people are like, well, if I ever want to, do my own deals, like, how do I understand and how to identify and qualify these pre-foreclosure deals? So, what makes a pre-foreclosure deal, viable, worth pursuing?
Okay, I love zombie properties. I love vacants. Anything that's
Uh,
vacant, you don't have the challenge, family dynamic, drama, moving some out. I will not evict grandma out of her home. It's just not what I do. There's enough properties
mhm.
out there. If there's and I've seen it happen. This is the sad part. We've tried to help some people, and they just haven't done what they needed to do in the time allocated, or the sales tomorrow, and we'll have 6 people attacking a deal to try to help a homeowner. We have seen some situations where it's just a too little too late, and sheriff shows up, evicts them. It's one of the saddest things to see. So I'm motivated
Mhm.
to help these families, but I also it makes me very akin, and have a love for zombie properties, or the vacant properties, probate situation, inherited properties. Dad's died,
Mhm.
kids live out of state, they could care less. They don't want to touch anything in the home. I did one in Georgia um, recently, and everything that they owned, even down to grandma's underwear, was still in the drawer. I mean, we hired a company to go in and move everything out. We have kids that are like, there's nothing personal that we want. And we'll say, if you want to get in there for a month or so and find any family photo albums, or they said, we've got everything we need 5 years ago. We don't want to do a thing. They don't want to lift a finger. So those are super easy properties where I can call the local, Goodwill or some, charitable organization, say, sell all the property, bed frames, chess, card collections, whatever is in the home, skis, bikes. That house actually had a four-wheeler in the backyard, a really nice grill. So they get to sell everything. They keep half the proceeds for that organization. It helps
Yeah.
us get the majority of this stuff out. Then we hire the rest of the clean out, and then we'll sell the property. But those are the ones that,
Wow.
if you're targeting properties, if you're driving home from work and you see a property that's vacant, has weeds growing, there's a orange sticker on the door that it's been winterized by a bank, please call me. Those are the properties that we want to go after and see if we can, make a deal or create equity or buy. So.
That's amazing. I actually never heard of that. Like calling the Goodwill and then having them do a sale. They get 50% and you get 50%?
So,
Is it?
so it wasn't the Goodwill. It was an organization that was local. They got 50%. I think they made $6,000 selling all the furniture. So we got
Uh-huh.
3 grand. We're like, sweet, better than nothing.
What?
And then we,
Yeah.
we ended up paying another couple thousand to have somebody go in and clean the rest of the home out and actually clean it. But there are charitable organizations. Google it in your area that will come and do these auctions. They're estate sales, is what it was. You can hire companies to do
Okay.
estate sales and actually pay them, or you can check with your local, Goodwill, Salvation Army type organization to see if they
Mm.
have an arm or division or somebody that they know that will come and haul all that stuff to them. So that's what we did on that
Wow.
property. And like I said, it was everything, cups. There was still dishes in the sink, Julian. It
Mm.
was gross. Um,
I bet.
but we have there are situations. I think that's what people don't realize is these inherited properties are a burden to children. A roof needs to be done,
Yeah.
HVAC. Whereas an investor's looking at it saying, hey, if there's margin in there and they're flexible on their price, we're a buyer. We buy low, we fix up, we sell high, and turn that over and put a good family in that community, a homestead buyer. And the family, so everybody's winning. So it's just a matter of opening the dialogue, finding out who the heirs are, the beneficiaries, and putting a deal together. It's actually a lot of fun.
Okay. That's interesting. Yeah, I love it. Great. So tell me a little bit about how you identify and filter these leads, before like talking to the bank and all that. Like we talked a little bit about it, like PropStream, you could do these, but what is the best way? What do you recommend? What do you suggest? Like if you actually want to get a pre-foreclosure deal or something like that, what would you recommend as your steps to getting, a list of leads, to maybe, get them?
Yeah, so there's a little saying, I have no data, no deal. If you don't have data coming in, and we actually pay for data. So we have different
Hmm.
services that we pay for that goes out, searches these counties, certain cities, certain equities. So we scrub that data. I want it to have 100,000 to 150,000 in equity. Equity heals all wounds, right? There's nothing worse than being upside down in a property. We've all been there.
Yeah.
And you make money when you buy, not when you sell, right?
Mhm.
So if we can sort those properties by area, location, I don't want anything that's out in the sticks. Unique properties, weird properties.
Mhm.
Sometimes entrepreneurs get in the mindset that, ooh, this is cool and it's a really good deal. If it's a weird property, stay away from it. I hate to say that, and I love weird
Gotcha.
properties. It's like a
Yeah.
castle in the middle of tract home neighborhood. Nobody wants the castle,
Uh-huh.
right? As much as you
Yeah.
love castles and princesses, and don't buy it.
Yeah.
Sometimes the best deal is the one you don't buy. But
Gotcha.
so we'll pull that data. We do have multiple databases, but if somebody wants data, we have data we give out for free. If people say, I know nothing about this business, I know nothing, I want to get started, but I don't have data and I don't have money and I don't want to, and I don't sell coaching, so I have no program to sell you. So there's a lot of coaching programs out there. But if somebody said, I want to get started, but I don't want to spend any money, okay, can you make a phone call? Well, I don't know what to say. Well, here's a script. Are you willing to put in the time? All it
Mm.
takes is time. We have people on the team, and there's a lot of attrition. People come in and out, and then there's these people that just the superstars that rise. On that deal we're making 97 grand on, we'll pay three ladies out that are just rock stars. We'll probably pay them 10 to 12 grand a piece on it. They have no idea they're going to get that, but it's just like, here's your bonus. Best hour and a half you ever spent calling, on that deal.
Wow.
So
That's amazing.
yeah, and it's fun. It's fun to overpay. And do you think they're going to be excited about calling, more or less, and trying to get more? And the goal is to try to do a couple of these a month. where they're making 10, 20
Yeah.
grand a month. And some of these people are still in W-2s. So their goal is
Hmm.
to transition out. I'm going to say keep your day job until you're making more in your side hustle, and then you can quit your day job and make your side hustle your main hustle. So there is a
For
way to
sure.
start out, no experience, um, don't know what to say. You can come to these calls where we teach you what to say. Here's the script and here's the list. Here's the data that we pay for that you don't have to pay for. And then when you know how to do it on your own, go do it. There's no strings attached. I don't have any string attached to you. However, if you have a deal that you find and you need funding, I want to be your first call. I want to fund it. Let me fund it. Let me navigate through it, and let's split the profits. So
That's awesome.
that's what we want to do.
That's super cool. So yeah, it's, for any listeners listening right now, Bobby can get you data and can give you all you need to get started. You just got to put your time in. So
Yep.
if someone's looking to get started and doesn't have any of those resources right now, except time, then you might as well reach out to Bobby. So that's really cool. So cool. All right. So let's see. Are there tools, datas, or red flags to help you decide to engage or walk away? You know.
Yes, and I said it before. Some of the best deals are the ones you walk away from. I mean, Julian, I think if people if you're going to jump into into the deep end of the pool of doing foreclosures, make sure you understand basic underwriting. That's going to be the biggest
Mhm.
key. What is ARV? After repair value.
Right.
What is the debt? What's the interest rate on the property?
Hmm.
What's their monthly payment? Does what does the homeowner want? Do they want $1 million? Do they want 50,000? Are there any
Hmm.
repairs that need to happen on the property? I look at the roof. I start at the roof. How new is the roof? When was the last time you did any remodeling? I go to electrical, HVAC, plumbing, and then foundation. Start at the top of a roof and go down. Start to mark out those lists. I don't want
Yeah.
crack houses. I don't want any meth houses. I don't want any mold remediation. I want simple get in,
Hmm.
get out. The days of doing these, I invested in two properties in Salt Lake City, and they were both 1.5 million properties, right? Older homes, older neighborhoods. And I was one of the investors that put in some money. It just took so long, this contractor, and then, oh, there's a crack in the foundation. I'm just like, oh, you got to be kidding me. So
Yeah.
I want to make sure that underwriting, basic underwriting, you understand that. If you don't, do not invest in a property. I'm going to tell you right now until you understand your numbers, because I have so many investors that call and say, hey, I have this deal and now they're foreclosing on me. That should never happen. That's never happened to me. It should never
Hmm.
happen to you. If you buy right, you get into the deal right. That's the key. And I would say partner with somebody, whether it's me or Julian or anybody else. Partner with somebody that knows a little bit more about the process than you. We have some people that have money that don't know anything about real estate. Some people that have real estate experience and no money. There is a place and a seat at the table for everybody, depending on where you are. So just
Yeah.
increase your knowledge, partner with somebody, get that basic underwriting, get a couple deals under your belt. And, we have some investors that we've been bringing in to fund some of these smaller deals. And now they have a front row seat at what we're doing, how we're closing deals. And I said, now you can use this as one of your stories. You were part of this as
Yeah.
an investment, or whether you're calling and you found the lead, you're part of that. So now it's one of your
Yeah.
stories that you can share.
So let me ask you a question. So, whenever we talk to anybody, in the real estate space, uh, a very important thing that everybody says is that you got to find a motivated seller,
Mhm.
right? Because motivated sellers usually are the ones that are able to negotiate with you in a way that the price that comes out is great. Now, what is I guess the comparison between a motivated seller that is in pre-foreclosure or foreclosure, compared to other kinds of leads, like, and this is for the people that are listening that are looking to do this,
Mhm.
is this a better lead, like, are they more motivated, or is it harder, like, just what is it compared to? Because there's sellers that want to sell, but they're not in any foreclosure process. So, like, I just want to kind of compare the two kinds of leads right now, just to find out, what kind of this lead is really,
So I would
in
say
comparison.
there's a couple different types of people and many different approaches that we use. Sometimes we hear homeowner or wholesalers say, "Man, I'm getting yelled at all the time. Like, I don't get yelled at. What are you saying to get yelled at? So it might
Yeah.
be an approach thing. Um, One thing I've learned in life, people don't say no. They just don't have enough information to say yes. So try a different approach. Everybody is motivated by something. And I find when we understand what that is, like Julian, what makes you tick? What's your, favorite hobby? What do you like to do? I'm curious. I'm asking you, what do you love to do?
I love the gym, and I love talking with ambitious people. Just
Okay.
like talking about what we want to do.
Okay. Hobbies. What's a hobby you love?
Hobbies, definitely like honestly, man, I don't have a lot of hobbies. I just work
Okay.
out, work out,
Okay.
work out, work, and eat well.
Okay.
Good, get
Oh,
my protein intake.
yeah, that's good. That's good. See, I don't have that. So I'm more of a biker. So as far as the gym, home gym, what's the coolest equipment you could get, or protein, weeder, or what's the most expensive thing you could buy, with your money in with your hobby? What is it?
Okay, yeah. So if I wanted to have a home gym, like in my garage or something, I'd buy. There's these machines that is just like one machine. You can do like bench press, you can do squats, you can do the back rows, and so, you basically have all of the main, exercises that really make up, a good strength workout routine. And so I could buy one of those, and it's just be one machine that does all, and I could just work out at home, and that'd
What
be amazing.
what does something like that cost? And I'm assuming it's not Bowflex, right? It's going to be a nicer brand than the old Bowflex.
Yeah, no, I'd say anyway, I probably 5 to 10 grand. I think
Okay. So if I found, you're my sales guy, if I found the nicest, what's the name of the equipment? We're going to call it Bowflex, right? If I found the
Yeah,
nicest one, it's 10 grand, and I said, Julian, tell you what, I want you to go drive 3 leads to the CRM this week, and you've got your home gym. What's that going to do for your
right.
motivation?
Right. No, absolutely. It's gonna be like, okay, great. Well, I get to have this gym that I'm always looking forward to. I get to skip out on having a commute to the gym. Having to wait lines for the machines that I want to work
Hmm.
out. And I get to do this all in my home, and
And I'm
it's
going to buy
just
it. I'm going to buy it for you.
yeah.
And we've done that. We've done that with sales reps. I bought a motorcycles, four wheelers. You find what makes somebody tick. I'm a big skier. I'm a big biker. I've had
Hmm.
motorcycles and vehicles purchased for me for hitting different metrics over the course of my career. So with a homeowner, it is no different. So we've got to find out what they need. What is their greatest thing? And when I'm talking to a homeowner, I want to understand from a personal perspective. I really do care. How did you get here?
Hmm.
Tell me about the situation. Well, husband just died of cancer last year, and I'm
Hmm.
struggling to make ends meet. Okay, well, if
Yeah.
I could give you that magic wand and you could create a scenario of the best outcome, what does that look like for you? Sometimes they say it's staying in the home. Okay, cool. Are you working right now? No. Do you have any, means of making that payment? And we'll talk very candidly about that. What I find,
Hmm.
a lot of people want the problem to go away, and they would
Hmm.
like a chunk of change, a car paid off, a move, a down payment on another home that's more affordable, tapping into their equity. Once you find out what that thing is that they want, that's what we say. Let's work toward that. The lady we're just barely dealing with, 50 grand. She thought that was a pie in the sky number for us. And we're looking at our
Wow.
comparables and what we need to invest in the property and what the outcome is based on our real estate agents, the ARV, the after repair value. That works for
Hmm.
us. That number works for us. We're okay
Yeah.
doing that. And she's getting 50 grand and we're negotiating her credit card. She's just like, I can't believe this. No other
Hmm.
investor has done that. So that's the secret sauce, is really trying to have a meaningful connection, communication, and understanding their needs, and then meeting those needs. You give somebody what they
Hmm.
want, you can have anything you want. And it's being fair. It's being respectful. We don't do this, as a philanthropic service 100% of the time, but good percentage of the time we do. We just help homeowners. And
Yeah.
we get hundreds of reviews, 5-star reviews that just say, I can't believe these humans exist that do this. And everybody on our team is like that. So that would be a tip when you're talking to these people. Understand their situation, what their goals are, and meet those goals. That's really what you need
Gotcha.
to do.
That's amazing. Cool, cool, cool. All right, sweet. So let's get back to it then. You know, Now, when we get this lead, right, or we got a deal, whatever.
Mhm.
How do we open the bank up communication? How do we approach the bank correctly without like getting stonewalled? Essentially, what's your first move once you identify a good deal? How do you initiate the contact with the bank and all
So,
that?
so this is where I got the nickname the Bank Whisperer. This was from a student actually on one of the Zooms we were doing, and I fish a lot. I love to fish. I love to bike. I love to ski. Anything outdoors that I can do. I'm not a TV watcher, video gamer. So,
Yeah.
I've been out on the boat reeling in fish while I'm talking to the banks. So there's a very literally and one time I wasn't on mute and I'm like, get the net, and they're like, where are you? I'm like, I'm on a boat right now actually, and I'm so sorry, but was working through a situation with the bank. But these are the things that you will be able to be on a ski lift. You will be able to be on that vacation if you learn these two or three tips in speaking with a bank. Third party
Okay.
consent. They are going to
Mm,
ask you for third party consent, and it comes in a couple different ways. I like to call and get verbal consent. And with some banks,
mm,
they'll leave you on as an authorized. I'll call and say, hey, this is Bobby. I'm with the Homes Hero. I'm the asset manager for Jane Doe, and we've got a situation we're trying to navigate through. Her home is being foreclosed on. You're probably aware of that. We wanted to call and see what options are available. And they'll stop me right in my tracks and say, thank you, Mr. Seegmiller. You're not an authorized user on the account. Jane, can we have, we're on a recorded line. Do you authorize and consent to have Bobby speak with, us on your behalf? So that's one way, verbal consent. Second,
nice.
and they're going to ask for the loan number, so have that prepared. When I'm on the phone with the homeowner, I tell them, have your statement ready. They're going to ask for the last four of your social, and they're going to ask if I have permission to speak with them on your behalf. So I prep
Mm,
them, and again, I position myself as a client advocate or asset manager. Second is the bank sometimes has
mm,
through that portal a third party consent form that is their form, and they want you to sign their form and nothing else is going to do. So you have to go through
okay.
that process. Or if you get online and Google third party consent, or you can jump on my Instagram. There's a little, here's what banks want to know. It's there free.
Mm,
You can grab it. It's just a form that authorizes you to speak to them. So those are the three methods. I usually like to do the verbal first and then ask when I call you back, bank, when I call you back. It's not a matter of if, but when I call you back, what do I need to do to speak with you without the borrower on the line? Do you have your own form, or can you use our third party consent? Yes, you can, and send it to here, and they'll give you the email address. So so
nice.
we're going to put off the third party consent form. We're now on the phone live with the bank. I want to
Yeah.
know, tell me about the interest rate. Tell me the balance. Tell me, what is the arrears on the property? What options are available? Can we look at a loan modification? I start rattling off a bunch of those things. The arrears, interest rate, all of those things I want to know, and I'm just jotting notes down as fast as I can because I'm doing
Yeah.
a mini underwriting at the same time simultaneously helping the homeowner understand what their options are. So that's the
Gotcha.
process. And speaking to the banks, will speak to you if they're on the phone. They're not going to speak to you if you don't have that third party consent. That is the stone wall that you can literally push that over by going, you know, with having that document. And now you're a professional speaking with the banks. Not that hard.
Okay, cool. So you're a client advocate or asset manager
That's what I
for
call myself when I introduce myself. And usually it's a lady or a gentleman on the phone. There's like, great, what company are you with? You rattle off your LLC or give them your full name. They don't care. Don't lie though. You're on a recorded line. Don't do anything, where you're misrepresenting. Your 100% job is to find out who is the trustee. If I reinstate this, where am I sending the money? So there's a lot of questions I'll ask the bank on the first call,
yeah.
and then a trick that most people, human nature, we want to be defensive. We want to be a jerk to that person on the other end of the line and fight with them. Do you want to know how to get
Yeah.
their guard down? Jane, thank you, or ma'am, Miss Bank, ma'am, representative, thank you so much. You have been so helpful. Usually we call in, this is what we do for a living. We call in trying to gather this information, and you've been such a valuable asset. Thank you so much. And anything that you would advise us to do, anything that we're missing or that we're not asking, And a lot of times they'll say, well, why don't you talk to so and so in this department and ask them this question? I get so many tips from the banks because every bank is different. I mean, they're all kind of the
Yeah.
same in what information I need, but small bank, large bank, policy, wild, wild west. I mean, it's totally different. So you start working with someone that's a little more empathetic. And
Hmm.
this poor lady, they are losing their home. It is a sad situation. You get the human connection again instead of the I'm a $15 an hour employee. I'm just going to answer the basic questions. I'm going to stonewall this conversation. You connect with them. They will do so much for you. This morning, I think I just told you with the
Hmm.
representative on the phone, $10,000 due on a $17,000 note. I negotiated that a couple weeks ago. And then I called him back because it's due in 2 days. And I thought, I need to wire this. I said, hey, I got talking to the lady, what options are available? And she went and talked to her manager. I was able to negotiate $500 today, and I don't have to pay the other 9,500 until we close on the property. Sweet. So they are
Sweet.
flexible, but it's asking them, will you go talk to your manager to see if we could get a bigger discount, or could we get a little more time to pay this off? And
Mm.
it's asking the question. I thought I was wiring 10,000 bucks today, and it's like, nope, $500. So I whipped out my bank credit card, and here you go. Here's the number. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, wow. That's a great. Okay, so I noticed I mentioned you mentioned some things. So you want to know what the reinstatement balance is,
Mhm.
the interest rate, the payoff. You want to get the third party consent form, authorization, and then obviously asking them about loan modifications. All of these different things, questions that you have. Is there anything else that you ask them that you're trying to get, information gathered to see if it's a possibility, to see if it's a strategy you can use?
Yeah, that's kind of the list. Again, just going through the order, I want to know the principal balance, what
Mm,
the full payoff amount is. So these are all different
mhm.
numbers. The principal balance could be 200. Full
Right.
payoff could be 250 if
250.
they're $50,000 behind. Reinstatement amount, and it's so weird because they never add up. And you try to ask a bank person, say, I'm looking at a statement right now. They owe 200 grand. My full payoff is 250. So you'd think that their arrears is like 50,000 bucks, but it can be like 65. And I'm like, these don't add up. I don't get it. But then I want to know the reinstatement amount. What's if it's a 3% interest rate, 3.5% interest rate,
Hmm.
and I can take that sub two, I'm buying that all day, every day, under sub
Yeah.
two, and I'm reinstating that loan. So I'm not having to pay off 250,000. I'm reinstating for 50,000 bucks. I buy it sub two, I'm on the deed, and I've got a killer interest rate now. And
Hmm.
where can you buy a house, without having to go get a loan? It's not my credit, not my loan. I didn't have to qualify for anything. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. But that's the,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
basic information that you need to ask for.
Gotcha. Okay. So that's amazing. Sweet, sweet. So now let's talk about some negotiation strategies with the banks.
Mhm.
What are some incentives, rules, or like risk reduction that you could use? When you're talking to a bank in a foreclosure deal. That you could do.
Well, keep in mind the primary goal of the bank is to what? Collect the money. They want their principal, interest, late fees, legal costs, foreclosure expensive. They're not looking to own that property in their REO department. They don't want to take it back. It's expensive,
Hmm.
and they don't want to
Yeah.
evict. They just want that debt repaid. So when I'm
Hmm.
calling to negotiate, I'm setting a scenario up that, hey, we're looking to resolve this quickly. That is music to a bank's ears. We need our money
Mm.
back now. We want to resolve this very,
Yeah.
very quickly. Um, Vacant properties can be vandalized, right? They know that.
Hmm.
So longer delays equal higher losses at the bank. So we don't want any long delays there. So you're coming in as a solution oriented, um, individual. Also, gosh, yeah, there it might be some roof leaks. So if you guys are going to take it back, you may want to get somebody out there to patch that roof before you have flood damage, that you're going to be dealing with. And
Hmm.
some it might be termites, or we're looking to get an inspection here. Looks like there's some mold. Those are some of the things we get initial pictures, and we really do have these things, and we can say, hey, do you want us to send those to you? Yeah, please send those in with your file and with your offer. I send a cash offer to the bank. to negotiate. But for the most part, my goal is to reinstate that loan and keep that loan in place. That's my play. Now, there's a lot of investors that just want to cash it out, pay it off. But my goal is to get it for as little as possible, and as little drama as possible, working with the first, the seconds, all of the above. That's a
Yeah.
strategy that we'll use.
Gotcha. So you basically use the condition of the house
Mm-hmm.
to try to get a reduction on the loan amount. If, for example, just for whatever scenario, right? Because yeah.
Yeah, the seconds, just to be clear, a first mortgage, unless you're doing a short sell, they're going to order a BPO, which a broker price opinion. They'll send a real estate agent out to determine value of the property, but most of the time, the first is not going to negotiate on the principal balance if they're the
Mm,
ones foreclosing. They know
yeah.
that they've loaned money, 10 years ago. They know that that investment is protected, that they're going to get all their
Right.
money back, their fees, their late fees, their interest. Keep in mind, we pay, like I said, 2.5 times what we borrow. So we borrow $1 million, we're paying back $2.5 million to the bank. Banks are in the performing note business; they want to make money, right?
Yeah.
So I don't feel bad beating them up at all. Homeowners, I care
Right.
about. Banks, don't care. So,
Right.
but the first typically is not going to negotiate. It's your seconds,
Mhm.
your thirds. That's where you can create that equity in those, but it's a matter of I'm trying to buy time with the first. I'm trying to get an extension. I'm trying to say we have a cash offer. The foreclosure or the trustee sale is in a week. Can you give me 30 days to figure something out with this homeowner? We don't want to see the sheriff, evict them. You don't want to see the sheriff. Is that something? I mean, I know you're an employee at the bank. What are our options? What can we do to help this homeowner? And I've heard
Right.
them say, we've given them 100 chances and we've already got this first claim, second claim, partial claim. We've done a loan modification and they haven't met the, repayment plan. We're done with them.
Hmm.
So if it's
Hmm.
somebody like that, I'm just gathering information and becoming very strategic and tactical in how I'm going to attack the investment. If it's somebody we can buy a little more time for, help them, move on, hit the reset button on life, put some cash in their pocket, we'll take on all the debt and make sure that's cleared and cured, and we're going to do the renovations. That is usually the scenario that's my personal approach.
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, you love helping the homeowners get into their next home or chapter in life.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So okay. So when we're looking at when you structure an offer,
Mm-hmm.
you just mentioned something very important. Like we're trying to resolve this quickly. What usually are you trying to do? Like I guess when you put in an offer, let's say for the second, third, or fourth liens.
They're going to want to hear confidence, your ability to perform. It depends on what you're negotiating. They're going to want to
Hmm.
purchase and sell agreement, so PSA and proof of funds. When I'm putting in an offer, there's a clear subject line. Here's the address of the property. The body of the email is going to have the name of that individual or the borrower, the loan number, last four of their social, and my
Hmm.
offer. So when we couple that offer together in an attempt to buy time, that breeds confidence in our ability to perform. That's what the bank wants to know, is that there's just not some Joe Schmo on the end of the line trying to delay the inevitable that's going to happen anyways. So
Gotcha.
that's, you've got to come in confidently and
Mm.
negotiate that appropriately.
Gotcha. So that makes sense. So for example, let's say there's a home, the total debt is 100,000. First lien is 50,000, second lien is 50,000, right? And you're trying to come in and get it for 70,000, right? So you'll have the structure as
Mhm.
you said, subject line, name of the person, social, loan number, etc., all that stuff, and then you'll have your offer and the proof of funds all
Yep.
there together, so that they just come in and they say, okay, well, what they're getting is essentially, they're getting a quick sale, right?
Mhm.
This is they're getting their money right away,
Yep.
and they're taking a little bit of a haircut, on their, I guess, on their their loan there. But is that how it goes, or?
Yeah, we just had so an example of one we negotiated a pretty steep discount on. It was a deal in Florida. The seller had owned the property free and clear. So just picture this condo, no debt. Well, there was a first of 30,000 that we ended up finding out about, but they had a judgment against
Mhm.
them. They lived in a different state, and
Yeah.
When I called the collection attorneys, I kind of like it. I geek out at stuff like this. When it's with a collection attorney or agency, it's just like go time. Their job is to collect as much as they can, because these loans get sold on the secondary market, or sometimes, uh, they're defaulted, and they'll sell those bad notes or bad debt just
Hmm.
in perpetuity. They just keep selling it, and they're just trying to collect some money. So anyway, this
Yeah.
attorney, $500,000 lien judgment against this individual.
Uh-huh.
They liened the
Yeah.
property. When I called, I kind of explained the situation, negotiated that for 203,000, sent proof of funds, and it was kind of a funny scenario. Sent, here's what we need to do, but I said, hey, who can help me facilitate this closing in your area? And she's, oh, by the way, my best friend actually owns a title company, and I'm actually here with her in Hawaii. So opened up escrow with her friend, right on the spot. We negotiated that for 200 grand, or 203,000. There was a first of 30,000 once we pulled the title report. So I ended up
Hmm.
negotiating that first down to 2,500. So
Oh wow.
ended up paying that off, paying them 2,500 bucks. Um, but it was interesting. Uh, they wanted, I even negotiated a non-recourse situation where they weren't going to pursue the homeowner for that $300,000 deficiency. So it's a deficiency
Yeah.
judgment that they could have got
Yeah.
against. But anyway, the attorney, she told me after the fact, she said, I had so many people calling on this property. She said, you're the only one that we would have negotiated with. And she told me that during the process. I'm like, oh, cool. She knew she was going to get paid immediately.
Uh-huh.
Her goal was just to get as much as possible. I had to diminish the value of the property by sending comps and my
Uh-huh.
comps, and she was sending me comps that were a little higher. And I obviously was sending her the crappiest comps in the neighborhood that had sold, and just a little back and
Yeah.
forth. But it was a great deal, and we cleared
Uh-huh.
a good amount of money on that one. And the homeowner, so we made a decent return on that one. But the homeowner, all we did was paint in that one. Didn't do anything else. Just fresh coat of paint, put it on the market with an agent, one of the top agents, and sold it. That homeowner said, "You just got me out of. I just got a $300,000 raise because we got
Yeah,
them
yeah,
out of
yeah,
that
yeah.
debt. They cannot ever pursue them." And that same attorney had liened a second property that they owned, their personal residence, in the state that they resided. So it was a good
Yeah.
situation all the way around. So there's
Wow.
a lot of fun deals like that take place where we can negotiate
Oh my God.
deep discounts.
That's amazing. Okay, so I want you to give us a little bit of information on what, these other things called liens and, judgments,
Mhm.
because like there's other things that encumber a property, that are potential things that, the
Mhm.
homeowner has to deal with, that you end up dealing with for them, So what are those other things that could possibly, make the house be like a zombie house, just vacant, sitting there for a long time, and the owner doesn't want to do anything with it, but then it's just something that someone has to take care of, but there's obviously a good upside there with the property.
So what's your question there?
So just basically, there's you mentioned judgments. What other things encumber the property
Oh,
that you
gotcha.
could essentially take care of, besides first notes and second notes and all
Yeah.
that?
So some of the things that you need to be aware, understand that when you're buying a property, you want to, if it's in a attorney state, that attorney is doing the closing, or title company, make sure a PR, we call it a PR, preliminary title report, is pulled on that property. You're going to
Hmm.
find all the things that encumber title, all the things that
Yeah.
cloud title. Those are some of the terms that you'll hear.
Hmm.
And some of them are shocking. Like when if I loan money on a property, I'm placing a memorandum or notice of interest on that property. So if anyone else uh, tries to buy that property, they're going to see a lien against that property for a certain dollar amount that I've loaned on. Or if I have a
Yeah.
contract, I have a property land development, I'm looking at, and so I've liened that property with a notice of interest based on that, notice of contract. So you want to make sure you're looking for taxes, liens. These are all deal killers. When you talk
Yeah.
to the homeowner, you're like, so they have a first and it's 150, and there's a second of 25 and nothing else. Well, you pull a title report, and guess what? Oh, Julian, they've got a solar lien of $50,000. Oh, they've got
Oof.
tax liens. They've got, and I
Yeah.
haven't heard of anybody being able to negotiate solar liens. I got my first deal with Sonova. They've declared bankruptcy, by the way, a big solar company. They're all in a mess. And I've got a lot of buddies that either have teams that sell solar or that own solar companies. So I've been picking their brains saying, how do we navigate this? Because it's a UCC1 filing, totally different
Yeah.
way to lien a property than a normal lien or a judgment. So, but we've got our first deal at 80% of what's owed, and that's my first crack at this. And I'm going to go try to beat them up a little bit more, these solar liens. But those are some of the things that crop up. Tax liens, those are the worst. Federal tax
Yeah.
liens, they owe taxes, they attach to your property. Shouldn't have anything to do with your property, but it does. So you've got to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that you're identifying all of those things. Any family loans, Guido loans, payday loans, anybody that's loaned them money
Mm-hmm.
that's liened the property, a lot of times they don't tell you the truth about a lot of those liens or they forget. So you want to make sure you
Mm-hmm.
have a clear understanding what is the debt on the property, who's foreclosing, what position is foreclosing, and is there a probate situation? Do I even have the right seller? Is the right
Mm-hmm.
person able to
Really?
sign on the loan? If you didn't sign, Julian, if you don't have a will put together on who the beneficiaries are of your property, guess what? State gets involved. Probate, they're going to determine
Right.
who those heirs are. If there's a foreclosure happening before the probate, not a good situation. So there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
things that you need to know before you just jump into the deep end of the pool and start swimming with the sharks, in these deals.
Okay, cool. All right. So yeah, there's solar liens, tax liens. So you're able to negotiate one of those solar liens,
I'm in the middle
80%.
of it right now. Most of we have not had success prior to. They'll say, here's the amount they're behind, and here's the total payoff. And I'm saying we don't want the payoff. Come rip the panels off the home if you want. So we're navigating through some of the solar situations with one of the biggest companies out there. So we're working through that. And once we have data on what they'll do, what they'll settle for, um, we'll post about that and educate people on how to navigate through those.
Okay, cool. Those are big ones. Yeah,
Those are
solar
huge.
liens are
Yeah,
those are deal killers.
they are.
Awesome. And tax liens, I've never heard of those being negotiable too.
There are companies that do it. It's these trains meeting at the station at the same time that's the problem. Could you
Yeah.
negotiate a tax lien down? Absolutely. How long is it going to take?
Okay.
It's just like when somebody says, let's do a short sell. Okay, well, we're 6 to 8 months to do a short sell, and the foreclosure's
Hmm.
next week. Not an option.
Right.
And that's
Right.
usually
Right.
a
Right.
one trick pony that agents, that's one play they have in their playbook is let's do a short sell. I don't waste my time with them. There's a better way to navigate a property than doing a short sell. So,
For sure. That makes sense. I've actually heard of someone that I've interviewed here in Florida. His name's Willie Numbers. He has like a loss mitigation company that he partnered with. But he said that like, in short sales, like as you mentioned, it takes 6 to 8 months to do one, but
yeah.
that's because they don't know how to do them. He can do them in like 60 days. And so
Yep.
uh, it's something like
Is
that.
is he national or is he specific state?
He's Florida,
Okay,
just
so
Florida.
again, their processes are going to be a little different than in some of these other states. There are states. This is fascinating. I was speaking with a homeowner, South Dakota, and
Uh-huh.
I was saying, hey, look, you've got equity in your property. It's over $1 million. Let's here's a solution. And he said, dude, here's all I'm going to do. I'm going to let it go through foreclosure. We can redeem that property. If I have this much equity, I have 6 months to reinstate. If I have this much equity, I have 12 months to reinstate. And I was like, it blew my mind. I'm like, are you kidding? So it will go through the sheriff's sale, and then an investor can buy the property, fix it up, and you can say, thanks for fixing up the property, sucker, and you can reinstate it. I'm like, blew my mind when I learned this.
No
I'm like, that
way.
is the most bass-ackward state to transact business again. I'll never buy anything, in the Dakotas, South Dakota, and
Yeah.
it was just weird. So you need to know where you're doing business. Probably is a 60-day process. He probably has a way to short circuit that, work with the banks, proof of funds, all of those things. They can just take a long time. And so
Yeah.
real estate agents, when I was a real estate agent, that was a play. Um, not one of the things I do now. Too much, too long, big waste of time.
Hmm.
So, and if it's
Absolutely.
in foreclosure and they don't stay that process, as you're going through the um, what do you call it? The short sale process, you lose your home anyways. So you have to be able to. The goal is to postpone or stop the shorts or the foreclosure while you're figuring out a solution. And sometimes they do Chapter 13. Sometimes they, can get a little, forbearance while they're going through that short sale process. But not a play that I look at personally.
Yeah, for sure.
So
For sure. Okay. So let's talk about the banks again. So,
okay.
how do you handle banks that are, slow, bureaucratic or resistant to, creative terms? Like what
It's a tough one. Documentation. I reinstated a loan on one property literally an hour before it went through sale, and I was working with the bank, and I'm usually a pretty nice guy, but I typed this representative an email, and just said I've never seen worse incompetency on this, and I always find out who is the trustee, who's the attorney foreclosing, and who's the bank, and I get their emails, and so I sent the wire, stopped the sale, theoretically, sent
Yeah.
notice to the bank, notice to the trustee. The property went through foreclosure. About a week
Yeah.
later, about a week later, the homeowner calls me. She's like, some dude's on my porch. She was crying. She's like, he said he owns the home. They're trying to kick me out right now. And I said, give the phone to him. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? He's like, we bought the home at sale. And I said, look, I reinstated, so I'm going to be, taking over and working with, this kind lady. We're not evicting her out. You're not evicting. No, we own the home. And he got kind of contentious. I said, who are you working with? So his investor got his investor on the phone. He proceeded to chew me out too, and he just said, "You're going to get schooled. You're going to get schooled." And I said, "Buddy, I've done this for a long time." I said, "We reinstated. They just need to undo what they did. This is incompetency on the bank's part, incompetency on the trustee's part." Long story
Uh-huh.
short, long story short, the investor called me back, apologized. They refunded his money. We did reinstate in time. We, showed all the documentation. They wired him back his $170,000. So that was
Uh-huh.
interesting. But, and I said, hey, you'll be our first call when we put that home up on the market for sale. So I'll call you back. Um, but anyway, that was an interesting situation. You've just got to know how to navigate banks and how the game is played. Otherwise, you can get bowled over. We've also had times where we've tried to reinstate, and the banks have said, sorry, not enough time. So it's not within our 24-hour window. The trustee won't accept any money. So we've had
Mm.
situations where we have wired money and they'll wire it back to us. So
Mm-hmm.
it just depends on the bank. It depends on, the situation. But for the most part, if you can beat that deadline, that cutoff before the sale, get the money in for reinstatement, you're golden. So that's the rule.
Okay, gotcha. That makes sense. Cool. All right, all right. Sweet. So let's get to the last part here of the interview process. I really just want to know a little bit more about how you do the deal structuring.
Okay.
Because how do you underwrite these deals? The is essentially what we're trying to get to understand here. So, are these different than a standard wholesale or flip deals,
Yeah.
or just how are the numbers? How do they work? You know?
So I pad every deal based on that basic underwriting. Anyone can Google underwriting on a property, a wholesale deal, a flip deal, sub two. They're all a different approach. They're different vehicles trying to get to the same destination. Um,
Yeah.
I pad every deal by 10%, after all of that. And that's called
Mm.
my oops, stupid tax percentage. So I want to make sure
Yeah.
that after everything's said and done, most investors, what I find, underestimate the problem and overestimate their
Hmm.
profits. And that's why
Gotcha.
they're always disappointed. We're always
Hmm.
surprised. We're always thrilled when we close. We're like,
Hmm.
oh, there's another like this one we just did. Oh, sweet! Just negotiated an extra $7,000 that we can put in our pocket.
Nice.
We're factoring in when I underwrite, I'm I'm accounting for $17,000 on that second. So that's what my
Mm.
underwriting says. And then I padded another 10%. The fact that I went and negotiated another 7,000 on that, I mean, it's not huge, but still $7,000.
Yeah.
That's good. We always come out, surprised. So that's something. basic underwriting, I would tell your people to understand, and then pad it. That's a little formula
Gotcha.
for success so that you don't find yourself upside down in any properties.
Cool. All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So if there's a property, just as we mentioned, 100,000, total,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, and let's say, a good wholesale, price is 90,000, right, or
Mm-hmm.
something, right? So you have to negotiate it. You get it at 70,
Yep.
right, first and second lien.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, you can wholesale it for that $20,000 to the investor once you take, you
Yep.
know, can can you wholesale like foreclosure properties? Yeah,
Yes.
right.
Yes.
After you've done all this work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I want to
Okay.
make sure that, again, it's about controlling the deed and controlling the note. Those are two separate things.
Uh
So
huh.
yes is
Uh huh.
the answer, but you've got to make sure those are in play. And most people, investors that buy properties from you, want to make sure the home is vacant. So you've got
Mm-hmm.
several problems to solve before you
Mm,
wholesale that. Nobody wants you to
gotcha.
give them their mess and say, here you go. Most savvy investors are going to say, yeah, we're not dealing. They're going to pull their own title report. Um, some of them are cash deals, but we will typically stabilize a property, reinstate, make sure the homeowner is on their way, have paid them, or in the process of paying them if it's a short close with an investor, and we
Mm,
wholesale those. But we do that all day, every day. Matter of fact, the two recent wholesales that we sold, we found out after the fact that wholesaler sold it again and they cleared 40 grand after our fees. So I was like, oh,
wow.
you dirty bugger, really?
Damn.
So,
You left some money on the table,
yeah,
huh?
we did. But hey, we just fed somebody else. But you get pretty smart and we say, sweet, shame on me once for not doing that. Found out who the buyer was and now we go direct to that buyer when we have properties in that area. So,
Right, that makes sense. Okay, cool. So, okay, obviously you got to control the deed and the loan, and then you said, um, ideally these properties have to be, they want them to be vacant. So either got to get the homeowner set up in another, place or something, and then
yeah.
that way they
This
get it
is
done.
this is something that's difficult and not a lot of people have the patience or tolerance for. We've
Mm-hmm.
had abusive situations, substance abuse, physical abuse, police domestic, dispute situations. Our job is to do as much as we can to help the individuals stabilize that
Mm-hmm.
asset, stabilize the individual. Our
Mm-hmm.
team will help people find property to move into. Will cover the down payment on that property, and that comes out of their negotiated portion. But that's
Yeah,
an expectation we manage up front. So nothing's a surprise. It's
gotcha.
here's your responsibility. You're planning to move out. We're helping stop the foreclosure, and in return, you get some of your equity. You do nothing, you lose your home, and you get nothing. And then the sheriff shows up and gives you a nice fat pink slip and puts your stuff out on the yard. Anything you want, you can get
Yeah.
that first day. You get to put on the front lawn and take with you. So our approach is a lot more humane, and we
Mm-hmm.
want to make sure we're taking care of the homeowners. But we do go above and beyond, like this negotiating credit card debt. I don't know any investors that really want to even deal with that. That's an above and beyond
Yeah.
service. We're actually helping, we help a lot of people find new places to live, to rent. We'll put down their deposit, they'll get a chunk of change. A lot of these situations, you've got to keep in mind if they're out of work and they're not working right now, again, we're not the
Mm-hmm.
bad guy. The bank says you don't pay, you can't stay. It's just a fact of life. You're not paying your bills,
Right.
and they've done these loan modifications. They only have so much tolerance and patience, and they've got to come up with a different scenario. So we'll kind of
Right.
talk through what that looks like for them, and help put a solution together.
That makes sense. Gotcha. I understand. So I want to talk a little bit about, when you're helping these people, what kind of margins or spreads do you typically aim for? I know, like, doing a foreclosure process for a property maybe priced below $50,000,
Mm-hmm.
probably not good, but I assume you guys like properties that are maybe priced, upwards of 200,000 or
Yeah,
250. So, like, what kind of is kind of like the, I guess, deal bot, like, ideal, deal,
kind of the buy
what's it called?
box.
Deal box?
Buy
Yeah,
box.
the buy box.
Yeah,
And how much is the spreads on those?
yeah.
If you do
No,
them,
that's a great question.
you know,
So our
you know,
our buy
correctly.
box is anywhere 150 to 200,000 on the low end, up to $1 million. That's where
Gotcha.
we like to play because there's more equity.
Yeah.
On the low end, gosh, if it's a smaller home, 25K
Margins.
minimum. I don't want to deal anything less. Too much can go wrong. Too many things can
Yeah.
go wrong. We just had an inspection on one of the properties that we have. Pool issues, pump goes out, got to shock the water. People see pools as a huge asset. I see them as a liability. I hate them.
Hmm.
They're just a bunch of
Yeah.
work. Termites pop up, foundation issues. So you want to make sure that you have enough buffer. Anything can be remedied, anything can be fixed. So the more equity you build in, when we're searching some of these databases for pre-foreclosures, 100,000 bucks is kind of our search criteria. And
Hmm.
I'm careful to share that out loud, but that's what we're targeting. And there are properties that are vacant that they have no owner to them. One of the properties we did had the ex-wife living in the home and the son, disenfranchised son, disconnected. Um, we went through probate, and ironically, they chose the son. Not, I would have never guessed in a million years that's who they would have picked as the rightful heir. I'm like, that's so interesting. I thought it would be
Hmm.
the lady in the home. So anyway, you just never know, but you've got to create lots of equity through negotiations or through just plain equity so that you can pay out the homeowner. So that's really the margins that we target. A lot of the smaller homes, I just don't deal with them. I don't want crack houses. I don't want $30,000, $20,000 crappy homes in Niagara Falls, area. Just not what we do.
Perfect. Okay, well that this is great. All right, so let's wrap it up. So what's one thing someone listening can do this week to get their first conversation with the bank? Something, actionable.
First thing they can do, I would say, is this an experienced investor or somebody that doesn't know anything? Or somebody that dabbles in
Uh,
real estate agent. I mean, it depends. I mean, there's so many different. We have researchers. We have, are you a researcher, a caller, a closer, a funding source? Are you good at dispo? Where do you fit in? So if you don't know what you're doing, find out who you are and what you're good at. Are you good at sales,
mhm.
but you're not good at the number side of it? Are you analytical, but you're not good at sales? I mean, these
Yeah.
developers and coders, they can't imagine having to sell anything. They want to be in a dark room and they want to be, coding, writing lines
Yeah.
of code. I've been around them. Many of the jobs I've had, and I'm
Yeah.
like, sales is not that hard. Everybody's in sales. No, we hate sales. So I would say first thing,
Uh-huh.
Julian, figure out who you are and
Gotcha.
what you want to do, and then find a group or a team or somebody you can align with that allows you to get into this business with no money. Um,
Mm.
if you're saying, hey, where should I spend my money? Should I go buy a CRM? Should I? No, don't spend money. You want to spend money? There's 1,000 coaching programs out there. I've seen a lot of
Mhm.
them. We're part of a lot of different groups. I think the networking
Mhm.
is a beautiful thing. So don't get me wrong there. But most coaching programs stink. Um,
Yeah.
but if you're just starting out, actionable, find someone that you can add value to, and that would be the first
Mhm.
thing. And then it'll open up some training, some reps, uh, help find deals. Start calling before you invest in anything, and see if this business is for you.
Gotcha. Cool. And how can they learn more from you or work with you directly?
So I'm not a big social media guy. I
Uh-huh.
we had a company, a HIPAA compliant cybersecurity company that had the privilege of building and selling, started from scratch and built it up. It was a lot of fun, but I have always avoided social media. So you're not going to find me in many areas. I'm on LinkedIn, but Instagram. Partners actually forced me to get an Instagram account, so they can find me on Instagram. I think it's Bobby the Bank Whisperer. So that's the
Mhm.
the handle there. And if there's something you want to know or help you need, we've got a JV form. You can go there, fill out a form, and say, here's the deal. I want to partner with you on, or I don't have money. I want you to fund it. Sweet, let's do it. Or I want to learn from you. We've got some things. Everything we do is pretty much free that we give out.
Yeah.
There's nothing to sell you or to charge you. I got to the point where I was speaking to so many people, and that consumed the majority of my day. So somebody can book a call and pay for a little one-on-one session if they want, just to pick my brain. But for the most part, they can jump on and communicate with us, via Instagram.
Okay, cool. Alrighty. Well, this has been great, Bobby. I really appreciate your time. Um, and hope to have you on in the future, talk a little bit more about your deals. But I guess, do you have any parting words for the guests right now?
Yes, I will say this is one of the, I love real estate. I'm passionate about it. I used to have a license, but one of the unique experience that I had, Julian, I was in Vegas. You probably know Alex Hermosi. I was at the acquisition.com headquarters, and we had some fun meetings there. He was presenting a business scaling workshop, no laptops, no phones. And
Yeah.
during a break, I got a call from the title company, and they said, "Hey, we need you to sign on this, you know, this property that's closing." And I'm like, "Well, I'm busy. Where is it?" And they're like, "It's in Vegas." I'm like, "No way, I'm in Vegas." So it was kind of cool, surreal.
What?
I literally was eating these little lobster biscuits, and Alex was there, and I'm like, I need to excuse myself. Went out in his foyer, signed a deal, and went back into the party. And it was the first time I hit me. We cleared about $156,000 on that deal. No joke. I'll
Wow.
show you the HUD.
Uh-huh.
The first time in my mind that it hit me that you really can do this business. The notary actually came to me. You can do this business from anywhere. It's knowing what to do and how to do it. But it's been fun. So my parting words to anybody is any if you want to learn something, go learn it. I mean, don't worry about imposter syndrome. Don't worry about any of that. We all started in diapers. Hopefully, we don't stay in diapers for the rest of our life, but we all started at the same place. You can learn this skill just like I did, just like Julian did. It is out there. There's enough books to read so that you can change your lifestyle and make money doing real estate. That's what I've loved about this business. It's been one of the funnest things to realize is that I can sign on properties anywhere, and I do it all the time on vacations. So it's awesome.
Okay. Amazing. All right. Well, Bobby, thank you so much. Hope to
Yep.
have you on in the future.
Thank you. See ya.